Welcome back on Dynamo. Today I want to propose you the unboxing and first impressions about the General Handbook 2019 released by the Games Workshop. I want to remember you that I'll create also other videos about the specific rules, and you'll find in the description the playlist about. Anyway, I had to separate in the next week the part about the rules so that I had the time to read the rules themselves and bring to you. But anyway, I have the option to bring them in the description. Anyway, I want to remember you that one video has been yet been released, and it's the one about the mercenaries, cause the part about talking about the mercenary rules and the first two companies of mercenaries has been published with the Soul Wars Forbidden Power, and I have yet realized video about it, so you can find in the description about such video yet. But eventually you'll find also in the next videos also the referring about that video too. So now we can start to see what are the contents inside here, but I want to make you first see one thing. As you can see, the GW has made two different booklets inside this releasing. One is about the rules and the battle plans and so on that are inside here, and one specific one about the pictured battle profiles, the match breed one for the different ones that has been released. I can yet anticipate you that about the Fleischitter Kurz there's not been any change in points if you're interested about. Anyway, I realized also a video about the changing point for the units about death. I've not decided yet if I'll bring one for each of the different faction or one that it's comprehensive of all the factions about death. But anyway, it's quite interesting, I think. And this is quite interesting because GW released in such a way so that it can change the pitch battle profiles and the rules separately. It's quite interesting because it means that probably there will be the option to change the profiles with faster. For example, simply, for example, in a releasing for the White Dwarf, instead of having a reselling of a new thing or wait 1 year to change something. So it can be really quite interesting to make it faster. Another option is that maybe if they can have the points being the same and they don't have to republish them but simply make them available. Anyway, I want to remind you that it's quite easy to find them because on the Warhammer community site there is the option to make your roster for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, so you can find all the points eventually officially here. And instead about the rules of the units, you have the app of Age of Sigmar that you can find on Android and on iOS. So it can be really quite interesting as a way to make it so. And I think that it will be also quite interesting if this will be applied also for Warhammer 40k, for example, because it can be really quite more suitable to change everything. But anyway, it's quite interesting and I wanted to make you see such a thing. In this sheet that it's the back of such General Handbook, we can see the parts inside here. So we can see the new open world rules sets, the expanded hidden agendas that I also find quite interesting, the narrative game toolbox, so new rules to make a narrative game that can be really quite interesting with unbashing and so on. And I think that it's really quite funny to play with for having a plane with a small amount of points. The name generators that we have seen something like this also in White Dwarf, but now it's here, so it's really quite interesting. Updated pitch battles rules and new meeting engagement rules. The meeting engagement rules are the ones about the plane for 1000 points about, so it quite be interesting. An overview of tournament games that it's quite interesting because there are the rules about the tournaments, and it's a way to make them in a certain way homogeneous so that they are in some way officialized as to be organized. And updated alliances abilities, and these are quite interesting ones, and I think that I'll make maybe some videos about some of them. I think about the Seraphon. Eventually write me in the description if you're interested about an analysis about them, if there are some that you're interested about, so that I realize a video specific one eventually. And now you can go to see the contents inside the General Handbook 2019. Here we can see the contents inside this booklet that are more specific about the ones that I introduced before. Then we can click, we can find the introduction about the game and the rules that we can find about Age of Sigmar. Then we can find the player's code that we found this also in a previous WebDARF, but simply I think that it's really quite interesting, and even if it's something that it's obvious in many parts of it, it's quite useful to remind sometimes, because it's something that make you remember that you are making a game, not something that it's a work or a killing. So read it only even to remember the spirit of the game itself eventually. Here we can find the open games part, and we can find the open war army generator. This is the new way to play with the open war army. So instead of creating your own army specialized, you can in some way generate it. So it becomes quite interesting, because they give you a certain amount of points, then you roll or you choose between different combinations to have a certain army. So it can become really quite interesting. And here we can find what you can gain with such points. So you can find that there are quite a lot of different ways to gain things. So I think that it's quite interesting. It's a sort of reshuffle of everything, so it can be really quite interesting in some way. So I suggest you to make this try, because it can be really quite interesting, I think. Then we can find the open world terrains. So also here we have different ways to make the terrain on the field, and we can find different schemes to make it represent the different options that you can have. What I want to make you understand is that, as you can see, the center of each field it's not empty. So it's a way to make you understand that you have to cut the line of sight, so that not everything is on sight of everything. And I think that it's really quite interesting. Here we have some example of them. Here we have about the close quarter battle generator, that it's another way to have different options to have the deployment. So it's quite interesting also, this one. So we have also other rules about the game for open wars. Here we have the hidden agendas that I find them really quite interesting. I like the idea to play them. I don't use quite often them, but I think that they can make some quite interesting variable in the game, so I suggest you to make a try. Then we have the part about the narrative play game, and we can find the part about the streets, so to play in really little amount of space, and it's really quite interesting. We have arcana objectives. Eventually we have regiment of unknown, that it's a way to have a sort of we can talk them create a sort of alliances that have the different rules, so it can be really quite interesting about, and I think that it can be really quite useful eventually. Then we have a bit of background about Elixir, so a special city. It's a way, I think, that you can gain something like in Forbidden Power for the Letizan army and so on. So we have a sort of rules how to play there. We can find it a sort of Nordheim, if you remember it. So we can find different battle plans, different ways to play there. So it's quite interesting one, and it's a way to make a sort of little campaign eventually with new rules. So I find it really quite interesting. Then we have raid and ambushes. This I not yet tried, so I don't understand if they are quite balanced or not. But surely they are really quite amazing one, I think, as idea. So it's a way to make for the campaigns, narrative and so on, really a nice way to play, I think, even only theoretically. Then we have about naming your heroes, and it's a way to have a sort of regulation of them to understand how to name them eventually, and to personalize your heroes at least. So it can be really quite interesting ones. Then we can find for a lot of different armies, so don't worry. And then we have this about the mercenary companies. I want to remember you, as I said at the beginning, that this part I yet realized the video, and you can find in the description and in the playlist about the General Handbook 2019 and also in the Forbidden Power. This is the first part that I talk about, and I realized also the second part that it's about these companies, specific ones, so that we have complete analysis about them, but simply not to repeat this because I had that treated them. Also here we have others, so there are quite a lot to talk. It will not be so short as video. And then we have the part about the match play games, and you can find the introduction about it, a sort of introduction also to the tournaments. We can find the pitch battle rules 2019, obviously, and they specified how it works, and for now it's not a problem. I didn't find yet some specific ones, but eventually if I found some change compared to before, I talk about in a specific video. It's only to make you see what are the contents now. We can find also here the ways, for example, the times and so on, a lot of things that can be interesting, and the new battle plans that you can play. So we can find a lot of interesting ways to have different battle plans to play, so to change quite a lot. There are a lot of new things. I want to remember you anyway that this doesn't replace the old ones. You can anyway play the battle plans that you find in the General Handbook 2017 and General Handbook 2018. Simply there are new ones to add to, so not worry about it. Simply remember that you have other options too, and there are quite a lot and interesting ones, so I suggest you to try them because they can be really quite interesting ones. Sincerely, I want to try this one because it's quite strange scene, and I want to try this battle plan because I think that it's quite interesting one. Then we have the part about the pitch battle tournaments. So it's a way to have a sort of codifying of the tournaments themselves, and I think that it's really quite interesting one, at least to have a referring to how to organize it. Then we had the meeting engagement 2019, and these are the same as the previous one, but specified to play for the 1000 points. So it's another way to create events, to create battles in a different way, so it can be really quite interesting in such a way. So it's something that I suggest you to read because they can be for fast playing an interesting view. And we have other battle plans specified for the ones about 1000 points, so you can find a lot of different things that can be interesting. I think anyway that these rules you can try to play also for bigger games or shorter games, not worry about it too much. Then we have the part about the meeting to engagement tournaments. We can see that we had a sort of repeating this because we had the same for the normal tournament, so it's a sort of repeating, but anyway it's quite interesting. Then we had the Conquest Abound, that this is about the rules of the different alliances. We can find the Darkened Covens, we can find the Dispossessed, so they are still here. We can find the Free Peoples, that a lot of people are waiting the release of an army about them. We can find the Seraphon. This is a bit strange, because the Seraphon has been proposed to be in the end of the year at the new Battleton, so this is a sort of temporary rules. Anyway, there has been a bit of changes in the rules. For example, the Lords of the Space and Time doesn't make a roll again. Here it's automatic, the usage, so it can be really quite interesting one. And I can anticipate you that some of the points for the Seraphon playing has been decreased, so you can play more models about, and I think that it's sweet quite a lot. There has been little change also here, but anyway, if you want, I realized a video about. We have these ones that are always the same, so not worry too much about them. You can find the Wanderers, you can find then the Slave to the Darkness, then you can find the Arrangers with the two different new ones, and we finished with the Meeting Judgment Rooster. Some of the previous analysis has been kept off because there's been released, for example, the First Layers has been released, the Battle Tome. About the Slanesh has been released, the one. So some of the previous analysis, also the Flesh-Eater Kurz, as they are not anymore here because they have a new complete Battle Tome. So there has been quite a little change about them. So to say about this book, I think that it's really quite interesting one. I think that there are quite a lot of interesting things. Sincerely, the part about meeting playing, it's not something that I'm quite interested about, because simply I was able to play something similar also previously. But what I like is the part about the narrative play and the one about the open play, because the way to make the fields, the way about the renowned regiments, the way about the mercenaries upline, there are a lot of different things. Also the ambushing, there are a lot of interesting things inside. So there are a lot of adding new ways to play that sincerely I find them quite interesting. Also the new battle plans that can be played in different ways and so on. I find quite a lot of interesting things that can be brought on. And I think that it's really quite a great add-in about the ones that want not only to make the usually matched play, but want also to try different options for Age of Sigmar playing, so that you can personalize your experience. And I find that there is quite an interesting way inside this book. So I suggest you to buy, because I find it really quite useful. In any case, you decide. Eventually, if you're interested only about the pitch battle profiles and their points, so I suggest you eventually to use other systems and official ones like the Warhammer community eventually. But sincerely, I don't find the way to not suggest you such book, because even only to use such one to play, I find it really quite amazing one. So I suggest anyway to have it. And I suggest you to give it a try eventually, because they can give you really quite a lot of new experiences. So, from Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video, or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.